So last week certainly was a busy week for fans of 21 Pilots. We had new posters appearing celebrating the 10th anniversary of Blurryface. We had the end of the Clancy tour. And perhaps most importantly, we had a final letter from Clancy to the Torchbearer, outlining his plan to take control of the city of Dima and wield absolute power over the citizens. Doing it for good, showing them hope. Nonetheless, it does seem concerning that he now has a desire for absolute power over the city. And I think some others expressed apprehension about where that would lead next. But since my last video discussing the latest, which was Clancy's letter, there have been some new developments. But what there hasn't been, which surprised me and I think a number of other people, was any kind of celebratory live stream for Blurryface like the one that they did for Vessel back in 2023. Now, I think there are a number of very good reasons why this didn't happen, the foremost among them being the fact that the band just finished the Clancy tour in the middle of Europe and either didn't have the time, energy, or the equipment to set up a live stream in similar or higher caliber to what they did for Vessel. They certainly wouldn't want to do anything that would be lower effort than what they did for that album if they are going to do a live stream like this at all. So looking back at it, and given that we didn't get any kind of announcement for it at the time, it wasn't a total surprise, but it was something which for a while I did expect that they would do. Now, there is another reason why I think they might not have done such a live stream besides just the logistical aspect of it, but we'll get into that in a moment. But first, let's take a look at some of the things which they did do and did release and put out to celebrate this album. The first of which was a lineup of new merchandise, stylized in the branding and themes of the Blurryface era. Now, as you can see, there's a variety of different things which they put out here, mainly clothing, but also 2 new vinyl pressings, one of which is just a coffee table book and a repressing of the album itself, which is designed very well, but is less interesting to me than this other vinyl, which is a single pressing, the demo for Doubt. Now, as I'm sure some of you are aware, based off of the backgrounds of many of my videos and different conversations I've had with some of you in the comments, you're probably aware that I collect vinyls. And this is one which I am very excited to add to my collection whenever it does arrive at the end of June. We'll get into that in a moment. But I'm also very glad that they added this to their official store and had more than a very limited quantity of these vinyls for sale, because I would have loved to get my hands on a copy of the vinyl for the line, but unfortunately, by the time I even was aware that such a thing existed, it had already been sold out hours before. So I am excited for this one. It would have been cool if they'd put the original version of Doubt on the B-side, but the image which they etched onto the background is pretty cool nonetheless. But not only that, not only did they put out a new line of merch to celebrate this anniversary, they also have on Instagram been releasing a bunch of old footage from recording the album and really just the Blurryface era in general, which is very cool to see. There wasn't much in there in terms of lore or hidden clues or anything that I thought was worthwhile doing a deep dive on for a video like this, but I enjoy watching these and I'm glad that they're releasing them. And it is similar to part of what they did during the Vessel livestream experience anyway. So I'm glad that they're at least doing something similar to that for Blurryface, even if it's in a slightly different format this time. But perhaps the more interesting thing which they're doing on Instagram, or at least the more significant thing when it comes to lore, is that they are updating their profile picture. And the eye has once again appeared and is closing this time. It appears that every 24 hours or so, the eye closes a bit more and the logo is hidden a bit more than it was before. So now, of course, speculation is abounding as to what will appear when the eye begins to open once again. Will it be just the same logo? Will it be a new version of the logo? Or will it be a brand new logo entirely, introducing us to a brand new era? I personally think that'll either be a slightly altered version of the logo, perhaps on a different colored background or something like that, or the eye will just slowly open again to reveal the same logo as before, sort of in the act of blinking, as you see Tyler or Clancy do very slowly at the end of Paladin Strait. Nico grabs him by the throat, he closes his eyes, and then slowly opens them again. And a lot of people have been theorizing, and I think this theory makes a lot of sense, that when Tyler said the entire Clancy tour, that entire show is a flashback showing us why we fight right before we do, that meant that the entire Clancy tour was taking place in that moment, when Clancy's eyes were closed at the end of Paladin Strait. And so right now it seems most likely that the eye's going to close, and when it does open, that is when we'll get the end of the story, either a music video or a song or two or something like that. And then, today, Rock Sound's tribute album, Blurryface Reborn, finally released, except for it didn't quite, and this surprised a number of people. It was advertised as releasing today at noon for those who are on the East Coast, but it didn't. What actually happened was this merchandise collection became available for pre-order at noon today. And it's a pre-order which is actually going to be delivered at the end of June 20th. And this strikes me as a little strange. Why would they, first of all, hype up a release for May 19th that actually isn't coming out until June 20th? And also, why would they delay it that long? Now, there may be, reasons for this. This may be how Rock Sound operates. I know very little about this magazine myself. I just know that 21 Pilots have appeared in editions of it a number of times. The release itself seems quite interesting. I am a fan of physical media, so I got myself a copy of the CD because why not? And I'm curious to hear what these different covers will sound like. I don't know a ton of the artists who are on it, as I believe, from what I've heard online, a number of other people also don't really know much about these artists, but that's fine. I don't think I necessarily had anyone in particular I was hoping was going to do one of these covers, so didn't make a ton of difference to me. But again, I was surprised that nothing actually happened today. This is all in preparation for a release at the end of June, and it is a little strange that they're pushing all the releases for the 10th anniversary of Blurryface to the end of June. The vinyls that we looked at on the official store a moment ago are scheduled for release at the end of June, as is this CD and a magazine. And so my theory right now, based off of all of that information, is that the eye is going to close and continue closing for the next day or so, and then once it closes, it will remain closed for a while. And by a while, I mean perhaps a month, at the end of which time it will reopen and they will release the end of the story. Now, there are a couple of reasons why I think this, but mostly it is kind of just speculation at this point, because we really don't have a ton to go off of in terms of actual timeline here. But it seems like, based off of what the eye's been doing over the past few days, that it will be closing either today or tomorrow, or perhaps Wednesday. And then, once it closes, I think it will remain closed for a month. And during that time, we will hear nothing new from the band. It will be complete silence as the eye remains closed, and an image of the closed eye will stay on the profile picture for a month. And then, at the end of June, the eye will open, and like I mentioned, they will release a song, a couple songs, at most an EP. And again, this is mostly speculation, but it is reinforced by those dates we saw a moment ago, that the tribute album is coming out June 20th, and then the Blurryface 10th anniversary merchandise will be released June 27th. Clearly, they are trying to build hype around releases towards the end of June. And there are a number of reasons why they would do releases at the end of June to celebrate the anniversary of an album which came out mid-May. And the most obvious reason to me seems that they are going to be silent for a while. They are not going to want to do any kind of promoting during that period of silence because they won't want to post anywhere. And so this allows them to stay silent while having already promoted the fact that things are going to be released at the end of June. And so because of that, because they've already built hype for the end of June, because of all this Blurryface material that's going to be finally released during that period, is that somewhere in between or around June 20th to the end of June, that's when the eye will open again. And everyone will already be kind of watching 21 Pilots. Everyone will be talking about them because this material will have finally been released. Again, this is pure speculation. I have no further evidence to back this up other than the fact that we see these dates. And perhaps in a day or two, I will have a completely different theory. But it does seem to make the most sense to me right now as to why those dates would be so far into the future. Again, it is only a month, but again, the anniversary was this past weekend, so it seems like it would have made the most sense to release all of this material for the 10th anniversary of Blurryface over this past weekend and not a month from now. But what do you think? What are your theories or speculations about why everything is releasing at the end of June, why the eye is closing, when you think it will open again, all of that? Like I said, we really don't have much to go on right now, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts, and perhaps there's something I overlooked or just simply have not thought of. With that being said, thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more music commentary and reviews.